each other is the big question.
That's interesting too, because in a tournament with a large number of rounds like this one, you're able to, of course, prepare for every opponent, but you have more time to prepare specifically for the opponents that you play after a rest day. So, Tanya, when you're playing in a tournament like this, even though you know who your opponents are for all rounds in advance, do you feel like there's an extra degree of pressure or an extra amount of...
Should we take it from the top, John?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's go ahead and go from the beginning of the game and to see how we got here and maybe what the ideas of both of our players are in this position.
And this right here, when black captures that pawn into the center of the board, is when we have an open Spanish. White temporarily gives up a pawn to open up the E line. D4 striking. Now that you've castled the rook, looking to line up against the black king, black must not try to defend the pawn and hold on to materials. Exactly. That usually leads in big danger.
Yeah, exactly right. And you want to make sure that you don't open up the line up against the king unnecessarily. There are many lines as well where having the knight come back to c5 can be a big annoyance. So you want to make sure that you're playing these in the right order. And as you can see here, there's no huge rush to focus against the pawns. We need to get development done. But, of course, we have an imbalance in the pawn structures. It makes things a little bit more interesting, a little bit more open and imbalanced. But at the same time, this opening has been played many times before. So while it is open, we should stress that it's also fairly well understood. Looking forward to seeing what tactics emerge out of this as we get into the middle game. So definitely not super quiet.
Now this all looks like standard theory so far. I'm not sure about the move h3. I'm not very familiar with it until rook e1. There are ideas eventually white has of putting the bishop on c2, knight on d2. As white, you really want to get rid of black's problematic knight at the center of the board. So it revolves around two different ideas. Can black in time get this backwards c-pawn to join the party at the center? Like you said, the board is split into half. Black's majority on the queen side, white on the king side, and that's how we'll see the play develop. So a quiet move, it takes care, it stops the bishop from landing onto g4, so just controlling a square. The queen lines up with that bishop, connecting the two rooks, also eyeing the pawn on h3. Very often, white also throws in an a4 to ask some questions on the queen side, but I believe that hasn't happened yet. The bishop comes out, knight a5, and doesn't defend the bishop. If you fall back with the bishop, this knight will jump to c4, and there are targets, a very active knight. So instead, trying to get rid of one of these two pieces. White is happy giving up the bishop pair. You would recapture with the pawn. The flank pawn moves towards the center of the board. You control some squares, and also without making a single move, the rook on a1 suddenly finds itself very active. Eventually, if given an option in those structure, white will push the b pawn one step ahead and really clamp down on black's pawn formation on the queen side.
So those are some of the long-term plans that we could be looking at as a result of this game. Remember, Wei Yi has had 5 draws in a row in the tournament so far. He's also the defending champion here at Tata Steel Chess, so eager to find an opportunity to prove a point. At the same time, you don't want to be reckless and needlessly throw something away, especially when your tournament life could be hanging in the balance. You're not at plus score yet, so you don't want to accidentally pollute that with a loss and really struggle to climb back onto the mountain that you're going to have to do to try and reclaim your title. Plenty going on there. Pragg, in the meantime, I mean, a win streak of 3 against some of the world's interesting things up his sleeve, because rook g7, of course, is a potential threat. And if you take the rook, then you then risk allowing white to queen. Obviously, black's not about to do that. So it seems to be that the players are... I'm not sure the black king can afford to move further away. You might have to defend the rook on f7.
King d4 is very dangerous because of your idea of rook g7. You need to move king to f6 when white lands on that g7 square.
Yeah.
So I'm expecting Wei to simply fall back with the king. And you know, you've got these two players, but the more I look at Nodirbek, to me it's clear that he's found the winning line. So we'll check in with that in a bit. He looks far too relaxed, like he's calculated his way through, just like he did in round 5. And we already have a result,
John.
That's
a handshake. Okay, so is that a... So that wasn't a threefold repetition. So I'm guessing that was a draw agreed in that position?
It was rook g5 and no way in. Black simply goes back with the king to f6, keeps everything defended. Pragg pushed. He used all his chances, all his opportunities, but Wei was super solid. He had a passive position, but it was never out of control, never in true danger of anything more than just being, well, optically slightly defensive. And Wei with his 6th draw in a row,
Right.
John.
Now, that's not too bad a thing. Remember, we're not even at the halfway point here yet. And Tanya, starting with 6 draws, let's put it this way. If